All right, everyone. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to our second session of the free PMP training based on the PMBOK version 8. So, in the first session, we've had an introduction about, the, the program, the full program of the full training and of this free training. Then we had an overview of the PMBOK 8, what has changed in the version 8 compared to the previous versions. Then, the changes coming to the exam. And then we talked about the ECO. Probably that's the most important part. And this free training. Okay. And then we went on to discussing, eligibility requirements for people from different backgrounds, then how to submit the application. And we talked about also the prices, the renewal of the certification. Of course, the second most important part was the PMP question types coming 9th of July and the new PMP exam. And yeah, that was probably the resume. Those were the most important parts of the session 1, which we had on Monday. Today, we're going to have the second session, all right? And we're going to start deep diving into the PMBOK. Of course, in these 4 sessions, we cannot cover everything from the PMBOK, but at least we will give you the maximum, we can to help you really understand what's this PMBOK 8 version bringing us. Okay, definitely, we've been waiting for this version for 5 years. So it's absolutely bringing some updates, something new to the community. Now, probably this could be a little weird for some of you, but actually, I wanted, to start this session by probably touching a little bit on some research or some, let's say, update PMI has brought to us. BMI conducted thorough researches in the probably past couple of years, 2024, 2025. They launched something called Next. Okay, it's trying to evolve the project management the project management practice to take the project management out of just a discipline of following certain processes while managing a project, okay, to actually maximizing. The purpose is to maximize, to deliver more success, all right? And for that, PMI has come up with a new concept. They call it M.O.R.E. Okay, it's an acronym. The M stands for Manage Perceptions. The O stands for Owning the Success. The R stands for Relentlessly Reassess. We're going to talk about these one by one. And the E stands for Expanding the Perspective. Okay, so more is not about doing more work. Okay, that's not the purpose of creating this concept. It's actually about doing work that delivers more success. And when we say deliver more success, we mean deliver more value. Okay, because project management's central focus in the past 5 years at least has been on how to create and deliver maximum value. Okay, historically, let's go back to a little history. For those of you who know PMI long enough, or even for those who don't know PMI at all, I will go a little bit, to history, back to history. So historically, project success was narrowly defined by strictly following the triangle we call the iron triangle, or the triangle of the triple constraints, which are scope, budget, and schedule. Okay, so historically, if you wanted to know whether your project is successful or not, you needed to make sure that your project is managed with respect to three key constraints: within the budget, delivering the agreed scope, and within the agreed schedule or timelines. That's historically, all right? And even when the constraints have evolved, all right, but still it was necessary that project success and the mindset we need to have while managing the projects need to evolve. All right. So this is why in late 2025, PMI released this M.O.R.E concept, okay, which is basically a call to the project management practitioners to shift their focus and accountability in the project beyond project management success to the project success. What does that mean? It means, and this is a trap. This is a trap I fell into. I remember probably in my first and 2 years in project management, I personally thought that by strictly following the book, the processes, the steps as described in the book, I should be successful. There is no reason why not to be successful because I am doing successful project management regardless of whether my project is really delivering significant value or not, the needed value or not, to the customers, etc. Okay, so by shifting the success from beyond project management success to project success, now PMI is now presenting us with a sweeping reconsideration of the role of the project management practitioners. So what actually more means, because this is why I wanted to start with this in session two, because uh, if you follow the full training, or if you have a chance to read the entire PMBOK, you will know that in its core, it's based on this. Okay, managing perceptions, owning success, relentlessly reassessing and expanding the perspective. Okay, so managing perspective. So for a project to be considered successful, right? The key stakeholders, and here, of course, when we say key stakeholders, we mean the sponsors, probably the customers, the executives, or any other key stakeholders. They must perceive that the project's outputs provide sufficient value relative to the perceived investment of resources. So, as much resources as they invest, whether it's organizational resources, whether it's financial resources, they get the perceived value or related value to that amount of investment of resources. Okay. Own and success. So here the project managers, or we call them generally the project professionals, they need to take ownership of the entire breadth of the project. Okay, they are responsible or they are owners of the entire breadth of the project and moving as much as possible beyond just literal mandates. All right, and executing on requirements. So taking accountability for delivering tangible and perceived value that is clear to key stakeholders while, when this is so important, minimizing waste. Okay, so you own the success. Now you've got higher responsibility, higher stake of responsibility as a project professional. All right. And at the same time, you need to continuously, relentlessly reassess, okay, the project parameters. You need to recognize that the reality of the inevitable and ongoing changes, being adaptive in a continuous way. And here you need to involve your stakeholders, you need to collaborate with them and reassess the perception of value and adjust plans. And this is for myself, okay, as a project practitioner, this is, I think, one of the most revolutionary things we have in project management in the past 5 years, probably, because I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I remember this project.
I think it was in 2015 or 2016. We've had the business case. The business case, well, I think, was conducted in 2014. But then the project was launched, I think, at the end of 2015. So the project was based on a business case which was conducted in a year and a half before the launch of the project. Now, the question to everyone present in this session, are the market conditions the same after one and a half year? Are the user needs the same after 18 months? Are their preferences the same? Is technology the same? Are the laws the same? The regulations the same? Are the conditions the same? Probably not. So how can you start a project based on a business case which was approved a year and a half ago? That's one thing. And second thing, now, even let's suppose this. Okay, let's suppose your project business case or the business case of the project was approved 3 months before prior to the start of the project. Would you still need to reassess your project parameters? Absolutely yes, because there can be changes at any moment, at any time in the project. That's why you need to be, vigilant. You need to be in pursuit all the time of the value, and you confirm that with your stakeholders. And the E for expanding perspective. So all the projects, they have impacts beyond just the scope of the project itself. Okay, so we all must consider the broader picture of how the project fits within the larger business, the surrounding environment, even the vision, the mission, the strategy, or the goals and objectives of the enterprise, and the entire world surrounding us. Okay, so this is reflected already in the PMBOK 8 when we talk about sustainability, sustaining the environment around us, and paying attention to the world where we are. So actually, I wanted to start with this. So this, I think, will help a lot of project management professionals, all right, who are keen on exploring this new PMBOK guide to understand what's the background of that. And let me tell you one last thing before I move on to the next slides, which are, I think, quite interesting slides we're going to have tonight. I have been a follower of PMI for almost 20 years, almost, okay? And I can see how much work PMI is doing lately in the past few years, and how much they're involving project professionals from all over the world to hear us, to listen to us, to understand really what makes sense, what is needed, because I need to say this again and again and again, and I want everyone to understand this. Project management is not about only following processes. It's not just about that. Everyone can learn the steps. Everyone, it's 40 processes now in PMBOK 8. It's 49 in PMBOK 6. It's a few, for example, in Scrum, it's a few practices in Scrum, for example. Okay, everyone can learn the steps. However, not everyone can manage perceptions, own success, relentlessly reassess, and look beyond the current perspective, expand perspective. Not everyone can do that. So I personally think that if you love project management, wherever you are, whatever your role is, whatever your position is, if you love project management, if you enjoy being in projects, leading projects, working with people on projects, owning the success, and ensuring that you create and deliver value, you're going to love this PMBOK 8. You're going to love this project management course, because it really going to show you a few practices, a few techniques, how you can succeed in that. Okay. Now, I think one of the most shared posts on LinkedIn in the past few months, at least in November, December, was the new definition of a project. And as much as it was expected, anticipated, sought after, it was a surprise to some people. Um, for decades and decades, we always knew that the project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service or result. That was the project definition for probably 40 years, probably. Okay, more or less, I don't know, maybe 50 years. But in the PMBOK 8, now let me tell you something funny, guys. And really, if there is anyone who is or was my student and heard this from me before, please write it in the comments. Since a few years ago, I tell my students that I prefer to use the word initiative because it's more inclusive rather than endeavor. Okay. And I remember myself, I have updated my project by myself, the project definition to mention value and being aligned with the company's strategy. So I did these three things. And surprisingly, 4 months ago, when PMI released PMBOK 8, I found out that actually my redefinition of the project, my own redefinition of the project, it was going in the same path. And in the PMBOK 8, there is now a total new redefinition of the project. So a project now is a temporary initiative, okay, in a unique context, because each company, each project is undertaken in a unique context. And the purpose of this temporary initiative is to create value, all right? Create and deliver value. So the project is temporary. Usually, now let me tell you this, and I have been saying this for at least since 2008, I think I've been saying this, okay? The project is supposed to last a few months, not more than a year, because market conditions, the constraints, the business case, the feasibility study behind the project, they cannot last for more than 1 year because of all the changes that are happening around us in our world, whether it's economic changes, political changes, legal changes, geopolitical changes, etc., technological changes, of course, etc. So that's why the project is temporary. It probably lasts a few months, up to a year, maybe a little longer, depends on the industry. And it's an initiative, okay, in a unique context. Now, even if at the same time we observe the same type of change happening in two different companies, it will never be exactly the exact same project, because those are different companies, different people, different probably processes, habits, cultures, etc. And now the project's purpose is no more to deliver unique product or service or result, but actually is to create and deliver value. Okay, absolute value. So this is the new definition of the project. After 40, 50 years, finally it has changed to reflect the new realities in the project management profession. Okay, now what is value creation in projects? Now, we just saw the definition of the project, but we want to add something that the project, yes, is a temporary initiative undertaken to create value, but that value must be worth the effort and the resources or the expenses in the project, the resources utilized in the project. So as much resources or expenses or effort we have utilized or put in the project, as much value we must receive and have. Okay, that's something so important. And let me tell you this. To those of you who are really keen on taking the PMP exam in the new version, whether you're going to sit in the PMP exam or whether you're going to experience that with us in our training, there will be several questions and exercises in our full training. And again, and also in the PMP exam, in which you will be required to justify or calculate how the created value, delivered value, actually equals the amount of effort and expenses undertaken in the project. So each project occurs within a unique context. And this unique context shapes the approach, the project management approach, which will be followed in this project. So we cannot, or we should not, rather than we cannot, we should not try to apply the same exact project management approach across all projects, even if we are in the same organization, because if we have different customers or we have undertaken those projects in different times, or those projects are addressed towards different markets, then each project has got a unique context and because of that unique context, a unique approach should be followed. Okay. And also the strategies. Now, this is something I enjoy. Yes. Something additional, something new, and the PMP exam based on the new ECO 2026 is that the project manager's perspective has been broadened and I would say lifted up to include a couple of strategies now that project manager is involved in and not just in plans. Before, the project manager was conducting or making plans, building plans. Now, yes, the project manager actually is following strategies, maybe can be involved in strategies, because those strategies can impact the project success, can impact the project governance, the organizational governance, etc. Okay? And also, since the project will have outcomes, those outcomes of the project, they should consider both benefits, whether tangible or non-tangible benefits, and also any potential disbenefits that could probably, impact the surroundings, the environment of the project. Like, we can have a project, we can make benefits out of the project, of that project, but we might probably create some disbenefits, like societal impact, sustainability, goals, etc. Okay, so this is the core value creation in projects. And in session 3, we will deep dive into value. I think session 3 will be a lot about value and the entire system for creating, delivering value. Session 3 is going to be very, very interesting, guys. Next Monday, don't miss it out. Okay, all right. Now this slide, I am a huge fan of this slide. It's been with us, I think since PMBOK 4 or 3. I mean, I remember for sure since PMBOK 5. I might not probably remember very well with the PMBOK 3 or 4, in regards to this slide, but I know it's been there in PMBOK 5, PMBOK 6, and now in PMBOK 8, yes, it's still there. All right. Let me tell you why. Okay. Now, I'm going to start with the smaller reason, then I will go to the bigger reason. Now, the smaller reason is that in the PMP exam, out of 180 questions, I think 179 questions or 78 questions will put you in a context that you work in a company. We call it organization. We use the broader, the more general term organization, because you could work in a company, in a non-governmental organization. We will see that in one of the next slides. We will come into that in a moment. Okay. So actually, when, in 99% of the questions of the PMP exam, you work in an organization and you have been assigned to a project. So you need to make sure that you manage that project, with the resources of that project in order to respond to the needs, create the value, and, keep the stakeholders satisfied. Okay. Therefore, your project, the project you've been assigned to, all right, it should create value, business value, which means you are right at the moment when you were assigned to the project, you're in a current state, whatever that current state means. Okay. Maybe there are certain processes in place, certain products in place, certain technologies in place, certain value in place. But once you're assigned to a project, it is expected of you that your project will create a better future state in terms of business value. So you cannot finish that project and the status quo is kept, or the current state is kept without any significant changes or any perceived value, business value. Business value can be anything. Can be like we created a new product, maybe we made some enhancement to our existing products. Maybe we extended to new markets. This is a new market we extended to, for example. Maybe we made some changes to our processes. Maybe we improved the quality of our products. Maybe we made some financial benefits, okay, or some social benefits, right? Okay, or maybe we complied with some regulations and we avoided some troubles, okay. Uh, so business value can be anything actually, but the project must always deliver a better future state. Otherwise, that project is a total failure. Okay. So you as a project manager, you are responsible for ensuring that your project will be successful in order to move from a current state, whatever it is, to a better future state. Okay. And of course, that takes us back to the previous slide where, the project outcomes should consider both benefits and disbenefits or potential disbenefits, and should include societal impact, sustainability goals, etc. Now, that's such an important topic. Now, really, a lot of project management professionals in the past few years have been asking for this. We really want to go beyond just following the process, respecting the organization's goals, because, for example, ethically, if you are assigned to a project which it will cause harm to the environment or to the nature or to the animals, for example, well, ethically, as a PMP certified person, you could simply refuse to be assigned to that project because, yes, it will bring benefits to the company, but the disbenefits are significantly higher. Okay, so maybe you could ask for that project to be reviewed, reconsidered, or you could simply refuse to work on that project. Yes, but anyway, in the PMP exam, there are not many questions about this situation. I think there are one or two questions in the trial versions so far. Okay, we will, definitely make sure that we share with you everything in the full training of the version 8. Okay, now one important key point, which is uh, tailoring considerations. You see, we saw it here. Um, each project occurs within a unique context that shapes its approach. That's why tailoring is quite important. You don't take the same approach and you try to apply it on all the projects. You must tailor. Okay, there is not one size fit for all project management approach. Really, I mean, even let me tell you this. Even in our PMP Digital Companion, which we shared with you the initial version. It's still work in progress. My team is really working hard on finishing the MVP version of it as soon as possible. So what we shared with you was a prototype. We try to finish the MVP as soon as possible. In that PMP Digital Companion, Step 7 is a companion that will help you or will accompany you. Okay, it will accompany you throughout your project life cycle. Even that companion, it takes a lot into consideration tailoring, because we know not all projects are managed the same way. Okay, so stay tuned for that. As soon as it is ready, we will share more updates with you. Okay. And there is another important thing I want you to remember is that, and it's not only related to the PMP exam. The PMP exam is, I would say, is very interesting. Whether in the current version based on ECO 2021 or in the next version starting July based on ECO 2026, actually it puts you in different situations, okay? Because when we say organization, that could mean enterprises, companies, non-profit organizations, can be small businesses, mid-sized businesses, large businesses, maybe international entities, joint ventures, and there are a couple of questions about joint ventures. Okay, maybe some contractual arrangements, some any other types of organizations. So, and this is something I enjoy. Back in the time when I took my PMP exam, I took my PMP exam in 2012. I think almost 14 years ago. Most of the question were stereotype. They were putting me in a context of a large company, and I know it was like sort of large American company because the entire context, I mean, the context of the entire questions, 200 questions at the time when I took the PMP exam, were really almost talking like the company where I used to work. Like they were talking about, for example, IBM or Microsoft or HP or AT&T. Okay, those huge, large international companies, originally American, and I remember, in that time when I was taking the exam, I was telling myself, okay, I'm lucky, because I took the exam when I was still working at IBM. Okay, I know the context of these questions. It's like if they're talking about the company where I work. But what about people from different countries, different organizations? They wouldn't be able to understand certain questions, okay, because they haven't experienced that context yet. And I remember at the time the success rate was not as high as now. Not because there were not enough materials to prepare. Just there was this famous book from Rita Mulcahy. It used to be famous but Rita is dead already since 13 years. Uh, but also the context was not as dynamic, as attractive in the context of the exam as it is now. Now it is more international. Some of the questions they talk about small companies, others larger companies. You could see from the questions that there is more international context. Okay, and that's why it's more enjoyable now, the PMP exam, compared to 15, 20 years ago. Okay, it's really a positive thing. And even the types of questions are way different now, way more entertaining. Let's say it this way, rather than those typical either calculation questions or you have to really memorize certain concepts and processes, or definition questions. Yeah, it was quite boring before. Now it's much more interesting, okay, and entertaining. Right? Now, since we're trying to, get the most important parts of the PMBOK together, I think it's time for you to remember this slide. Yes, it's absolutely time. Okay. Now, this slide has been in the PMBOK since I think most of the previous versions, but now it's been updated. Yes. Before we used to have just this part here in the middle, but now it expanded. The perspective has expanded. And I think this gives you a full picture of what you need to know about project management in terms of not just focus areas, but the entire project management, how it looks like now. Okay. So when there is a project, usually there is a business case. Okay. Now we can go general and we can say business documents. General, okay, it's feasibility study, business case, maybe benefits management plan, for example, PESTEL analysis, etc., etc. So usually, when there is a business case, business study of an idea conducted by either the project sponsor or a specialized team, the most important part is that those business documents have been approved. Once they're approved, and they're the property, once they're approved, that means the idea now received the go to become a project, because the project before before taking place, it was an idea, or it was based on a need, or based on a request. Okay, so now, right at the start of the project, or right before starting it, the sponsor, okay, who is the owner of those business documents, we'll assign a project manager, okay? And that project manager will live throughout the life cycle of the project, from the initiating phase or initiating processes, the planning phase, planning processes, executing processes, and arriving to the closing processes. However, it's not one straight line. Actually, it's more of an iterative, not exactly iterative in the agile meaning of it, but there can be changes. And those changes are monitored and controlled by the monitoring and controlling steps and processes. Okay, not always the execution goes exactly as the plan. There can be some adjustments, some updates, some changes to the plans, to the baselines, maybe new constraints, new assumptions, etc. Okay, these are the project boundaries. From here, right at the initiating to the closing. And the project manager now is responsible for delivering value. That value will go to the end users, or the customers, or the requesters. And also, there will be documents delivered out of that project. We call them project records, such as lessons learned register, for example, okay, which will feed into the wider organizational process assets. We will see those, I think, in the next session. What are the organizational process assets? Okay. So this slide, if I were you, I would be looking at it every single day until I memorize it in my head. Okay, it really contains everything you need to know. Maybe missing just one little step, but we will have it, I think, next session, which is sometimes even after the project closure, some work goes beyond the project. Okay, beyond, for example, to maintenance or to operations. And sometimes the project manager needs to, even though officially the assignment of the project manager stops right when the project is officially closed, but sometimes tracking the benefits needs to happen even after the project closure. Not necessarily by the project manager, but at least a handover of a benefits tracking system. Okay, so all of this is so important now in this new way of managing projects with this PMBOK 8. Okay, so quite interesting, quite entertaining to look at all this and go through them. Right now, for those of you who know the previous versions, and for those of you who don't know the previous versions, this slide from the PMBOK guide, it helps you have, a holistic view, I would call it, even though holistic view is more of a principle, but a holistic view of what you really need to remember and understand from this guide. Okay. Now, the entire focus is on having a project manager with a mindset of being proactive owner and value the deliverer, like you deliver value. So the entire mindset and behaviors that PMI expects from you is to be proactive, to have proactive ownership of and value driven. Now, these are three different words: proactive, ownership, and value driven. I love this. Honestly, I can tell you something, and I think many people know this because I spoke about this many times in the past 5 to 10 years about this point. When I started my career in project management, I was not very successful. The first 1 or 2 years, I was not very successful for one simple reason. I was applying project management exactly as the book says. If the book says now you have to do this process, I was doing it. If the book says now you have to go to this particular next process, I was doing that. If the book says right after that there is this tool you have to use, or this phase you have to close, or this process you have to implement, I was doing that. But I was doing exactly what the book says, but I never cared about if that really delivers value to the customer or not. And the other reason for my failure was I was not so proactive. I was not taking steps in advance. I was not foreseeing problems before they happen, since they are still risks. I was not, I was letting the customer always be one step ahead of me. I was always trying to catch up with the customer. The customer was so proactive, was reading between the lines, was having strong and far foresight, was anticipating what I could not anticipate, was reading the lips when people were not talking, was going through looking into their eyes to understand what they really want or will do. While I was blind, was even trying to dive deep into their minds while I was focusing on documentation. I was not proactive enough until one of my sponsors, actually it was one of my supervisor on that program, found out what was wrong with my behavior, with my work, with my quality of work. Told me, Ahmed, you're doing it all right by the book, but you're not proactive enough. Okay? You're not reading lips. You're not reading eyes. You're not reading minds. Okay? And you're not taking steps in advance. You're just letting your customer take steps before you. So now I remember that discussion. It was probably 16, 17 years ago, 15 maybe. Now I'm so glad to see that being reflected in the PMBOK 8. Okay. And proactivity has been a fundamental part of the mindset which PMI wants the project manager to have, along with being an owner, you know, ownership. You own it, you own the project, you own the success. You have to be responsible for that. And that's a great second part of it. Yes, because you remember my first reason for failure? I was just doing everything by the book and I was not really caring whether that makes sense with the customer or not. That was a big mistake I was making. And everything suddenly changed when I told myself, what if, and now here's the magic sentence, really, that changed the way I do project management. I asked myself this simple question: what if I treat this project as if I'm paying for it from my own pocket, from my own money? I would not think that this is organization's resources. I'm doing what the book says, and that's it. No. What if I change my mind and I pretend or behave as if I'm paying for everything from my own money, from my children's money, from my own savings? And that shifted the way I look at the project, the way I care for the different steps, different aspects of the project. Now, suddenly, I've become more responsible. No, I mean, I was not less responsible, but more caring. No, we will not do this because it doesn't make sense. No, we will do this because it brings a higher value. No, I will not be sitting and waiting. I will actually go take the next step. I will be digging. I will be running after whatever I need to run after, etc., etc. That changed everything. That ownership changed everything. And then value driven. And we've talked already few times about value, and we're going to talk a lot in session 3. In session 3, next Monday, 9th of March, we're going to talk a lot about value. Now, this is in the center, in the heart, okay, of this figure in the PMBOK. Now, that's surrounded now by 6 principles. Now, project management in the PMBOK 8 is based on 6 principles. In PMBOK 7, PMI introduced 12 principles, okay, to us. Now it is 6, all right? These principles, we will go through them in this session one by one, adopting a holistic view. I'm not going to explain them now. We will see them in a while. All right. You probably, those of you who joined session 1, you know that we will not take any break. The session will continue for 2.5 hours straight. So stay with us, please. We want you to enjoy this. And don't forget that there is a code which you need to write down in a piece of paper so you can fill out the form tomorrow and earn your participation certification. All right. Focus on value is another principle. Embed quality into the deliverables mainly, and also the processes. And really, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that this has been brought back by PMI. Since 2009, I was saying that focusing on quality or on quality in products only is not enough, because quality is also about the quality of your work as a project manager. Okay. Imagine you manage a construction of a new building. Okay. You deliver a perfect building. That's fine. Okay. But there is zero documentation, or almost zero documentation. Your plans are outdated. There is no lessons learned register. There are no documented change requests. Everything just happened in your mind. Yes, the building looks great, but we don't. There are no justifications, no documentation, no updates, no repository where your documentation are saved. Well, that's poor project management quality. Even if the deliverables are of an acceptable quality, but what about your work as a project manager? So now I'm so glad that as part of the principles, okay, uh, quality of project management and quality of deliverables have been brought back. Okay, then be an accountable leader, and I think these two words, accountable and leader, they say a lot. Now, this is all about you to be a leader and accountable at the same time. And then something new, which I love so much, integrating sustainability within the various project areas. We're going to talk about that. I love that because we are not alone in this world. We don't behave alone. Everything actually we do could impact the surroundings around the project, the beings around us, including us. All right. And the sixth principle is to build an empowered culture. And this is, I think, what, let's say, the community or I would say the entire, the wider audience in the different business areas, not just project management, has been asking for. To to be empowered, to be heard, to be able to take decisions, to share their opinions openly, freely, without fear. Yeah, an empowered culture. That's something important. Now, this mindset behavior or mindsets and behaviors, these principles also then are surrounded by the seven performance domains. Now, those of you who know PMBOK 6, and we talked about this in the last session, in the PMBOK 6, there are 10 knowledge areas. The 10 knowledge areas means what you need to know as a project manager, or what you need to focus on as a project manager when managing project. Integration management, scope management, schedule management, cost management, quality management, resource management, communications management, risk management, procurement management, uh, stakeholder engagement. Yes, stakeholder procurement, risk, then resource communication, quality, then scope, schedule, cost, and integration. Those are 10. Now, in PMBOK 8, we have 7, and we don't call them knowledge areas anymore. We call them performance domains, the same term we use in PMBOK 7. In PMBOK 7, there were 8 performance domains, okay? But in PMBOK 8, there are 7. And they are almost the same meaning we had before, but with some improvements, some changes, and some performance domains were removed or either merged or put in appendix. The 7 key performance domains in PMBOK 7 are governance. Now we don't say integration anymore. We say governance, scope, schedule. We don't say cost. We say finance, and because it's broader, and I like that. Stakeholders, resources, and risk. Now, some of you would ask, hey, what is communication? That's the key one. Well, it's integrated here between stakeholders mainly, with stakeholders mainly. What is quality? Is also merged with one of the performance domains. We will see that. Okay. So quite an interesting slide, this one together with this one. I think all the slides are important, but I'm trying to, help you focus on the most critical, most important ones. Okay. So, and by the way, we added something to our full training. And we, of course, in this free training, we picked some slides from the full training. Like, for example, mapping the performance domains, to the focus areas. What are the focus areas? We used to call them processor groups. Now we call them focus areas. So in the project, there is an initiating focus area. So when initiating the project, what we need to do? Planning focus area, executing focus area, monitoring, controlling focus area, and closing focus area. So this table will help you remember for each performance domain where does it have processes. There is actually another table where instead of those tick marks, there are the names of the processes, but it's quite a big table. But we wanted to have this one just to help you memorize. So, for example, for governance, there are processes for governance performance domain. There are processes in each of the 5 focus areas. For scope, there are processes in planning and in monitoring and controlling. For schedule, there are processes in planning and in monitoring and controlling. For finance, the same in planning and monitoring and controlling. Now, some of you would be asking, hey, Ahmed, but for example, for scope, don't we do anything in executing? Yeah, we do, but it's covered by this one, by the governance, by the whatever processes are in executing focus area for governance performance domain. The same for schedule. For finance, it's also covered. So for stakeholders, planning, executing, monitoring for resources the same, and for risk. So this will help you, remember how to map or where do you have processes in each of the focus areas. But we'll go into that in details in the next slides. Okay. So this was just a quick overview to help you, deep dive into this PMBOK 8. Now, before you wonder, or before we move on to the project management mindset now, and we get into details with this mindset, um, now let me tell you this. Some people have the feeling that this book, version 8, has taken them back to the waterfall, not like the PMBOK 7, which was based a lot on agility and adaptive approach. And one of the signs that it was really based a lot on agile is that, for example, there were 12 principles in PMBOK 7, same like the principles in agile, which are 12, same number. No, it's actually not. This PMBOK 8 is not. Let me stress on that. PMBOK 8 is not considering only waterfall. And the proof, we saw it in the last session, number 1. We told you the PMP exam based on ECO 2026 cover the questions of the PMP exam based on ECO 2026 are 40% waterfall, 60% agile and hybrid. Okay, the PMBOK moved to the previous form almost. All right, but it's not just about waterfall projects actually. So don't worry about it. There is a lot of agility, but most importantly, a lot of hybrid project management. Hybrid project management probably is I would say it's the future of project management. I've been saying this since 2015, and I think from 2025 until 2030, 2035, Okay, I think more and more projects will be managed following hybrid approaches combined with AI, okay, rather than pure waterfall or pure agile. That's my view. It's hybrid combined with AI, with multiple deliveries throughout the project in a very organized PMO environment. Please remember this sentence. Remember it. So if it will ever happen, at least you know that we were early adopters of this, and some of the early people who said this. Okay, that's how I see things from my own perspective. Okay. All right. Now let's start with the mindset. Even in the current version, based on ECO 2021, we have emphasized a lot on the mindset, even though it was not particularly mentioned in PMBOK 7, okay? But we have always told our students while preparing for their PMP exam, please try to understand PMI's mindset. And now, very nicely presented in PMBOK 8, PMI presented the mindset, and here's a slide taken from the PMBOK. Okay, what is the mindset about? We go back to the same three words: being proactive, have ownership, and be value driven. Okay, because project management is much more than just collecting or collection of performance domains, processes, and methods. Okay, so it represents a mindset. Project management now represents a mindset. We can even call it growth mindset. All right, because this is fundamental for for executing the strategy, fostering adaptability, driving change, generating value. All right. So the mindset, this is the way how we think in the project. Okay. Our habits that make sense, of our different behaviors and views of others, as well as the way how we interpret and deal with various situations. Okay. This mindset is described by three dimensions. Okay, and these three dimensions: proactive, ownership, value driven, and six principles, as we have already seen. All right, so being proactive, sorry, these are the three dimensions, and here are your six principles. Adopt a holistic view, embed quality into processes, project management processes, and or processes in general, and deliverables. That's and these are two principles. Then be an accountable leader and build an empowered culture. That's part of those are two additional principles. Then focus on value and integrate sustainability within all project areas. All right. Now, let's try to understand these three dimensions through some case studies. All right. So, for example, let's have an example of a project or a Nova Connect Enterprise system implementation project. Okay, that's just a case study. So, this project, this Nova Connect project, here, how can we be proactive? How can we implement this proactivity? Okay, so through a proactive approach, by empowering these small cross-functional teams to be able to anticipate early anticipate risks and resolve them or deal with them before they become issues. Or if they become issues, at least try to act as quick as possible, not let the issue become a blocker. Okay. Here, the team members, they collaborate closely, they take decisions together, collectively, okay, and they even take initiatives without relying on top-down control, all right, in a proactive way. So this proactive behavior reduces delays, reduces rework, enables the system to be delivered faster at lower cost with high reliability, highlighting the impact of proactiveness on this project success. Okay, so being proactive, taking early actions, anticipate early, and be firm and be decisive. Okay, so it's not just being proactive, but you have also to be decisive, because you could be proactive but take the wrong actions. You have to be proactive and at the same time take the right actions. Okay, that enhances proactivity and guarantees its success. We can try to explain the dimension of ownership through another case study, like the Cross Rail. This is the metro line in London, the Cross Rail of the Elizabeth line, okay, in UK, the Transport Infrastructure Project, okay. So each major section of this project, it has a senior responsible owner who is fully accountable for the cost, for the schedule, for the safety, for the quality, and leaders were empowered to make decisions, resolve issues without waiting for the upper line or the upper management to be involved, or without even need for escalation. Okay, here this ownership culture, it requires no blame. Okay, collaborative culture, encourage transparency. It encourages transparency and teamwork across designers, different contractors in the project, and even the clients. Okay, so the stronger sense of ownership, the better it is, because this creates high performing teams and supported progress in one of the largest and most complex infrastructure projects, okay, where there are fixed regulatory and operational deadlines. Okay, so there should be ownership on the project to let the teams move quickly and not be stuck because of we're waiting for someone to give a decision, for example. And the value-driven dimension, I think, this is one of the most important ones, and I think it's very well understood. Now, we can take the example of a greenfield sports complex development, okay? Um, so we integrated sustainability across the entire project lifecycle from planning to operation. So here we made some prioritizations on low carbon materials. We reuse some materials as well, and minimize construction waste. And designed venues for long-term community use after the event. So by embedding sustainability into design, procurement, construction, and legacy planning, so we delivered long-term value economically, environmentally, and even on social side, not just completing the project as quickly as possible, but rather really taking into consideration the value-driven dimension, on a long term. All right. So these are the three dimensions. We try to explain them with examples of three different case studies just to help you understand what each dimension really means. Now, we said that the mindset, the mindset that PMI presented in the PMBOK is rather a growth mindset. Okay. Think big, think how to grow. Um, You see, let me tell you something honestly. Before, the project manager's role was limited, and it was limited on purpose. Project manager was just someone who gets assigned to a project, applies the processes, follows the, we used to call them the process groups, okay? And that's it. Now, you as a project manager, you need to think beyond, have a growth mindset. How this initiative, now we say initiative, will contribute to the growth of the company, to achieving higher value, more value, okay? Generating higher and more value. You need to drive a change. And you need to wonder whether that change really impacts only the area where you're working as a project manager, or beyond, and if it's just within the company or beyond. Okay, you have to be adaptive, and that's so important. And that's why I told you guys, PMBOK 8 did not bring back waterfall to be the most important type of project management. Actually, no, because as a project manager, you need to be adaptive, and that comes a lot from agility. And you need to be able to meet the strategy, execute the strategy, meet the strategy of the organization. Okay. Um, One of the most important for me changes we will have with this new version, and this touches our mindset as project managers, is really be a proactive project leader. And by the way, I noticed something. The term project leader is being used more and more now in this project management discipline between 2025 or 2026 and 2030. I think between for the next 5 years, we will say more project leader, even though project manager is used a lot in the exam or in the profession, but it's leaning towards project leadership, proactive project leadership. Okay, taking the right decisions, shaping effective project management, driving the team towards achieving the strategic objectives. Now, if you just look at this box, you see, there are really some extremely important terms and words. Look, proactive, okay, strategic, all right, drives, effective, achieve, these are some such key terms really for being a proactive project leader, someone who can help the team move forward with the project, succeed, paving the way for them, equipping them or providing them with whatever they need. Because let me tell you this, the success, the project success no more depends only on the project manager. This is what we were taught somehow 15, 20 years ago. We were taught that, you see, it's like as if without you, the project fails. The project cannot move without you. Actually, you should create an environment and empower a team that even in your absence, the project continues as smoothly, as seamlessly as possible. Okay, you should not be the bottleneck, for the project success. You should really make sure that you have created everything in a way that your team can succeed, even if you are absent for whatever reason. Okay, and that's what makes you a powerful and proactive project leader. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that because some people fear this, some people fear that if they would create such a culture, that means the organization can get rid of them, and the organization would say, we don't need project managers anymore or project leaders anymore. Well, it's not possible because who will deal with the stakeholders? Who will manage communications? Who will deliver the project documentation and artifacts? Who will ensure that whatever work is being done fits with the expectations? Who would really calculate the value, the created value, and compare it to what's expected? The team will not do that. So you don't have to worry about your role or position. Okay? You will always be there. You will always be needed. All right? Okay. And before moving on to the next part, let me take a step back. I told you guys, I'm taking a couple of slides. So what we did in this free training, we took few slides from the different chapters we have in our full training, okay, based on version 8. And by the way, we will launch the full training based on version 8 in the month of May, I think May. The training we will have in April will be still based on the current ECO 2021. I think in May we will launch the first training based on version 8. So people would have, they take the training in May, then revise during June and take the exam during July. Okay, based on the new version. All right. So it's very important to understand now that um, in the project management culture, let's call it this way. Let's use the right term, the project management culture that we need to have, all of us, is to think big, think beyond. Now, let me tell you something, what I personally think, honestly, okay? But, between social responsibility, a company's social responsibility when launching projects, Okay, caring for the environment, caring for the future of future generations, and the environmental sustainability also, caring for the nature, not polluting the nature, trying to protect whatever we have in order not to lose it forever. Now, let me tell you what I personally think. I think that for the first 3 years, not a lot of project managers and companies will really, really care about this. Okay, to perceive, to try to really have some social responsibility, environmental sustainability. But this, I think, will be so trendy between towards the end, 2026, 2027. This will be so trendy that it will become a habit at certain point. And and I personally will do that. I will personally do that. You can count on me. You can count on me. You will see it in our digital companion very soon. Okay. I will really make sure that I'm going to deliver this in the digital companion. Okay. Which is I will I will push towards making sure that whatever business case template and whatever project charter template and whatever project success criteria is being defined and whatever in the administrative closure of the project, social responsibility or environmental sustainability, and mainly the sustainability, will be in there as a condition, whether for to fulfill while managing the project, or for considering the project successful. Of course, depends on the type of project. Now, if you have a small project, just updating, internal processes, that might not be so obvious or so critical or so important. But other projects which might impact socially or environmentally, we need to have there. But at least in our own, I'm talking about Ben Hamuda Consulting, in our own documentation, I will make sure that it will be reflected, especially in the companion, in the PMP Digital Companion, to be really included. Maybe not as mandatory when creating a charter or when closing a project, but at least it will be mentioned there, even as optional, but at least it will be there, okay? Because social responsibility is so, 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 so important, okay? All right. Now, for that, you need to always know how to balance your customer needs and the sustainability needs. And we will have several case studies in the full training in order to know how to deliver to the customer what they want, be successful in giving them the value, but at the same time, we balance their needs with the sustainability through proper and effective integration and being responsible. Okay. We will explain this further in more enhanced way in our full training. All right. Now, let's move on to talk about the project management sixth principles, which we have already mentioned. Okay. Um, we saw earlier what are the project management principles. We just saw the names. Adopting a holistic view, focusing on value, embedding quality into the processes, the work processes, and the deliverables, be an accountable leader. I like that a lot. I don't know why each time I read it in my course, I love it. Or each time I read it in the PMBOK, I really love it so much. Integrate sustainability with all project areas or within all project areas. So important. And by the way, sustainability can be even internally, within the organization. Okay. We have, I think, one or two case studies about that in our full training, and building an empowered culture. Okay. Now, what's the first principle adopting a holistic view is about? Okay. Now, this is you, the project leader, the project manager. You need to understand and manage projects by considering all the components and their interdependencies as part of a larger system. Okay, this perspective it aligns with the concept of the systems thinking we had at least in the PMBOK 7, which emphasizes on the interconnectedness of elements within the project. Okay, so this holistic view um, it provides a framework for viewing interrelationships in their full context and seeing patterns rather than just snapshots of parts of the project. So you have to look at the entire picture, the entire view collectively, holistically, holistically. All right. This is crucial for managing the complexity of the project. Okay, especially if there are many interconnected factors. Okay, this enables the project managers to grasp the overall situation and also connections among the different project components. All right. This even will help you figure out the root cause of challenges and tackling them efficiently, uh, especially if you use different root cause analysis techniques, which take you to the original and deeper inside the root cause of a problem, and then you find out that actually it happened because many factors were interconnected. All right. So, adopting a holistic view, in summary, it's about viewing the project holistically, okay, to ensure that decisions consider all the different interconnected factors and elements, and also optimizing alignment with arcing objectives and enhancing project sustainability. Okay, so this is like proactively managing risks across all project domains, anticipate the challenges, and strengthening the project resilience, and minimizing, some potential disruptions. Okay, of course, here you can engage the stakeholders throughout the project life cycle to foster collaboration with them, integrate diverse perspectives, and raise the probability that desired outcomes will be achieved. Okay, so this is very, very important that you have a holistic view and not just be focused or narrow focused. Okay, just focus on some snapshots or specific parts of the project. All right, good. Now, another principle in project management is the focus on value, right? What is the focus of on value is about? Um, of course, we mean the project value. This is the because focusing value. This is the ultimate success indicator and driver of the project. Okay, it's no more respecting the constraints, but it's the the the, the the ultimate indicator of whether the project was successful or not. All right, so the value can be described and assessed using either different measurable metrics. We can, for example, use return on investment, or some quantitative observations from testimonials from stakeholders, or whether societal benefits have been achieved or not. So value represents the overall worth of the project outcomes and the net benefits to stakeholders. All right. So here, value actually can be measured per unit of investments, can be realized throughout the project, preferably throughout the project, because in the traditional waterfall, value was so far realized only at the end of the project. However, in the new mindset, it's more preferred that value is realized throughout the project, especially if you are following a hybrid approach or an adaptive approach. Okay. Value, of course, can be measured in a quantitative or qualitative ways. So you as a project manager need to help the teams focus on outcomes that maximize value creation and meet or exceed the target business objectives. And this is something new. This is something new. It's been mentioned in the PMBOK 8 few times. How to meet the expected value or even exceed it. And in the PMBOK, there have been a couple of, the good thing about the PMBOK now, the PMBOK 8, there is something I like a lot about PMBOK 8. And this is not just for principles. This is in a lot of parts of the PMBOK. It gives you examples. It's no more just this theory, okay? It actually gives you examples of a project. For example, if it talks about meeting or exceeding value, it gives you, there are mentioned examples of the PMBOK, okay? And of course, also the full training, we reflect on that, okay? So this is the focus on value. I think, I think it will take some time until the project management practitioners or professionals find a way how to calculate that value and follow through with it during the entire project life cycle in different industries. Because some people will be wondering, and I totally understand that, how can we actually know that we have met the value or we have exceeded the value? How can we actually measure the value throughout the product life cycle? Are there some formulas, some templates, some tools? Well, my team and I are working on something, and I'm sure there are other project management experts who are working on that. We will try. So my team and I, we will try in the PMP Digital Companion to create a tool or in the digital company to include a way, mathematical way, how to know whether how to measure that value throughout the project and at the end of the project, okay? To know whether you have met that value or you have exceeded it or not. In other terms, how we can transform the customer needs into measurable value so we can, throughout the project, keep up with it, track what we're delivering, and compare it to what the customer expects. No more just words. We don't want to have only words or something like a requirements traceability matrix, but rather something calculated quantitatively. Quantitatively. Exactly. So we will try to do that, my team and I. All right. Okay. Now, a third principle is the embedded quality into the processes and also into the deliverables. Before it was quality was all about deliverables, but now it's also about processes. Okay. So quality is the set of characteristics that the project deliverable needs to have in order to meet or exceed the target objectives. Okay? So here, quality or project quality is about mainly satisfying the stakeholders, fulfilling their expectations and requirements. All right? So the deliverables can be accepted. But also now, and this is new with the PMBOK 8, quality also is about ensuring that project processes are appropriate and are as effective as possible. Let me give you an example about this one. Imagine having two project managers in your organization. Both have been assigned to almost the same type of initiative. One is very organized. The documentation of the project are up to date, are stored digitally in the repository. Every single change goes through a proper change management process. And the other person actually they don't really keep their documentation up to date. Whenever there is a change, they try to, handle it or manage it in a friendly way, but without official change management process. And then one day, one single day, there is an audit. Okay, one single day, um, uh, the two projects undergo an audit. What do you expect? What do you expect will be the findings um, of that audit? Of course, project one will get a pass. Project two will not get a pass. I remember, for example, when I was working at IBM, every year um, there was this audit we used to have with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Every year they were coming to us. We were sitting with them for several weeks in a locked room. Really, I remember those days. I cannot forget them. They were checking our project compliance, our projects compliance, our projects documentation, the quality of our processes. And it was a tough time for us, project managers. None of us, no project manager wants their project to fail in terms of quality. And I'm not talking about quality of deliverables. I'm talking about quality of processes. Yeah. Because that PricewaterhouseCoopers, they did not check the deliverables. No, they don't care if you are delivering a software, a machine, a computer, a building, an equipment, service. They don't care. What they care about is your processes, your compliance, your documentation, your configuration management plan, your change management plan. All that's what they cared about. Okay, so that's why now it's very important to embed process quality into the project early enough in order to guarantee that your project is compliant and your project gets this tick, the pass. Yes. Oh, I cannot forget those weeks. Really, it happened every year, and PwC doesn't joke. It was quite tough time at the, those years, those times. Okay, all right. Now let's move on to something you all gonna love. You all gonna enjoy. This is you, right there in the middle. And sorry, I mean, I couldn't be gender neutral. I mean, and by the way, it's who prepared this is a colleague of mine, and it's a she. It's her name is Hannah, and I'm sort of, I mean, she tried to balance male and female. She should have put both male, woman, and men in there. But anyway, so please don't get offended if you see only a man in here in this, but it's all about you, men and women. Okay, and it was prepared by a woman, not by me. Actually, I almost didn't prepare any slide of this presentation. I only gave instructions, and my team did a good job. Thanks, I thank all of them. So, what's being accountable leader about? All right. So, let me tell you this: projects, projects in general, create a unique need for effective leadership. And I can tell you a joke if you want. This is a reality, actually. It's not a joke. Um, Wherever I worked, especially in my first days in project management, one of the most sought or wanted role was being a project manager. I mean, online on the internet. Oh man, if you could see how many job roles posted for project managers, and everyone wants to be a project manager. Why? Because project management for many people was a significance or a signal or a meaning of leadership. Being a leader, being in power, being in control. Since we have projects all the time, we can never live on earth without projects. Anything you have in your hands, in front of you, whether it's a tool, whether it's a product, whether it's a machine, whether it's a service, which you are using, they all came out of a project. Okay, whether it's an innovation project, whether it's a development project. I'm not talking about operational work like production in serie or manufacturing. Those happen after the project. Those are operational work after the project. So everyone wanted to be a project manager, all right? Projects involve multiple organizations, departments, functions, vendors, who do not interact on a regular basis. Okay, uh, projects may carry higher stakes and expectations than regular operational functions. So, as a result, a broader array of managers, executives, senior contributors, and other stakeholders may attempt to influence a project. And this diversity of influence it often creates higher degrees of confusion and conflict. So, therefore, effective leadership behaviors are found more frequently on high performing projects than lower performing projects. So, an accountable leadership, now please remember this, an accountable leadership is about being responsible and taking ownership of the project's target business objectives. So you own it, okay? As well as the actions taken and the decisions made, all right? So you as a leader, you will influence, you will inspire, and you will motivate others. Let me ask you a question. If you have been a project leader for some time, how many times some of your team members wanted to leave the project, but because you were a positive, influential, you knew how to motivate them, you convinced them to stay. Okay? You, as a leader, you're accountable for your actions. You need to be an effective leader. You lead by example. You don't do the opposite of your words. You do exactly what you say and how you, or and what you learned. All right. You need to demonstrate responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. And I think responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty, these are the four pillars of the PMI Code of Ethics, which we have a video about separately on our YouTube channel. Okay. And by the way, do you know, to be really an effective, accountable leader, you need to be adaptive. You need to adapt your style to the situation. Okay. So, and by the way, being an accountable leader, let me tell you a secret here. It's not just about you, the project leader, the project manager. Actually, any stakeholder, any team member, okay, can demonstrate uh, leadership behaviors. For example, we work on a complex project and it's so large, so big that as a project manager by myself, I cannot manage it all entirely. So one of the project team members stands up and says, I will take care of this part. And another team member says, and I will take care of this part. That's a leadership. That's demonstrating leadership. You should encourage that. Actually, you should appreciate that, encourage that, and welcome it. All right. So it's a big part of the project management mindset to be and principles to be an accountable leader. All right. Then we have integrating sustainability within all the project areas. So this principle involves meeting present needs, but like the present needs, whatever they are, but without compromising the ability of future generations. Now we're talking about the future generations, like your children, the children of your children, okay, to meet their own needs. So this principle of integrating sustainability within all project areas involves adopting technology responsibly to foster a better future while systematically identifying and mitigating any adverse impacts on organizations, community, and environment. All right. So integrating sustainability means considering people, okay, the earth, okay, society, and value while performing project-related activities. I personally, I have called on, for example, banning project managers who are PMP certified, banning them or at least freezing their credentials if they're involved in projects that cause harm to the world. For example, I cannot imagine how can someone PMP certified work on military projects to create and produce weapons that will be used to kill civilians. Now, I'm not talking about to defend your own territory or country, but I'm talking about attacking weapons. Okay, for example, I cannot tolerate that. I cannot accept that. Okay, sustainability encompasses addressing the different environmental, social, and economic impacts, considering the well-being of people globally. Well, I wish one day we can achieve that. Okay, the effective and wise use of natural resources and implementing sustainable strategies. Okay, so this sustainability principle can be evident at the, different levels, whether it's tactical, operational, or strategic, right? So, but we will deep dive into this in the full training. And I think uh, the last principle, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, the last principle is to build an empowered culture, okay? An environment, a project environment where mutual trust among stakeholders and team members is promoted. All right. So that's an empowered culture. There should be clarity on individual roles, responsibilities, team agreements, and guiding processes. Okay. So we know that stakeholders determine the success of the project because of their needs, because of their acceptance criteria. All right. So stakeholders and team members on a project are key to its success, and they should be empowered across many dimensions. So a collaborative environment should enable both stakeholders and team members to contribute their ideas and recommendations freely and proactively to meet project outcomes. All right. Especially that stakeholders can be highly influential and can impact the project performance and outcomes. And if you have a motivated and empowered team members, they can be engaged to maximize value delivery. All right. So these are the principles. Now let me tell you this. If you are new to project management, don't expect that in the PMP exam you will have theoretical questions about list the 6 principles of project management, or which among the following is not a principle or is a principle. There are no such questions in the PMP exam. These principles are reflected in the PMP exam in situation-based questions. Okay, situational questions, not like theoretical questions or definition questions. Those are not. They don't exist at all. Right? Now, also we created for you this mapping table. I don't think many trainers have it yet, but at least we want to be the first ones to have it. This is a mapping of the principles, the different performance domains. Here we have the 7 performance domains: governance, scope, schedule, finance, stakeholders, resources, and risk. And here we have the 6 principles. So where each principle is present, okay? So adopting holistic view is in all, for the governance performance domain, you will see that all the principles will be reflected. For the scope, it's all of them, except for the being an accountable leader. The same for schedule and finance. For stakeholders, actually, all the principles will be demonstrated. In the full training, we explain how that is being done. For resources, principles that will be reflected and present are the holistic view, sustainability, and empowered culture mainly. And for the risk, is actually all of the principles. This is mentioned in the PMBOK, but the table is not in the PMBOK, so we created the table based on that. It's not maybe so important for you now. Only when you join the full training, you will better understand why this mapping is important. Okay? All right. Now we move on to the last part of this session, which is the performance domains. And I think this is what most of the people have been waiting for. Okay, to understand the different performance domains, these 7 performance domains, especially those who know the previous versions of the PMBOK, I think they are very, curious about these performance domains. We will just have an overview about the focus areas, what happens or what are the key actions in each focus area. We have 5 focus areas. We have the initiating, the planning, the executing, the monitoring, controlling, and the closing, and we have the 7 performance domains. I think this section here, this part from slide 81 under slide, I don't know, number 97 or something, 94, I don't remember anymore. I think that's the essence, that's the core of the entire PMP training, okay? Of course, these are just slides we took from the full training, but in the full training, we go really deep in those. Now, what happens in the initiating focus area? Mainly, what really happens? Okay, so in the initiating focus area, usually the project is formalized through the project charter, through the assignment of the project manager by the project sponsor, and through the approval of the project charter, by the stakeholders. The initial scope is defined based, on the initial documents and discussion with the stakeholders. Of course, stakeholders are identified. Then stakeholders should be aligned on the project. That's your role as a project manager to make sure they're aligned. Okay. If there are any project management roles, they will be assigned, such as the project manager or any person that will take any part of the project management work. We talked about the business case and the benefits management plan. These are the business documents, because you, as the project manager, you need to really understand the background of that project. Okay. So these are mainly what happens in the initiating focus area. So we try to put this simply in this form, even though there is a better form or a different form. We have the full training, but at least you will remember it this way. Okay. In the planning focus area, usually you as a project manager, you were together with the key team members or maybe some experts. You will create the project management plan. This is a document in which you will explain how you're going to manage the project. This is in waterfall, especially in the full waterfall, not in the light waterfall, but in the full waterfall. Okay, if it still makes sense to have it. Some companies still require this document. Other companies, they have replaced this document by a digital companion, like we have done at Ben Hamada Consulting. Let me explain that further. As soon as we're done with the MVP of the digital companion, you will know. So let me repeat that. As soon as we're done with the PMP Digital Companion, you will understand that we created that companion actually to replace this project management plan. Honestly, in my entire career, I've created project management plan just for 2 projects or 3 projects maximum. It's a thick, heavy document of 20, 30, 40 pages in which I explain as a project manager, how am I going to manage each part and aspect of the project. But now in this new digital world, we have or we are using digital tools to replace this document. So wait and see our digital companion to better understand how it will replace the project management plan. However, in the PMP exam, it's still important to know it, because until the moment the PMBOK was created, there is no digital companion that exists in the world yet. Even though in the PMBOK 8 and the PMP exam, we talk a lot about AI, but not to the point that it will replace the project management plan. But at least we took that step further to be the first ones in the world to present a digital companion that will replace the project management plan in practice until it will be reflected in PMBOK 9 or an update to the PMBOK 8 one day. Okay. Then, of course, in the planning focus area, you will try to define the scope in details, what's in scope, what's out of scope, define and or refine the objectives clearly to be able to know really what to focus on, what to deliver, prepare a plan, prepare a schedule, plan, when the changes can occur, how to manage them, etc. So it's a lot of planning you do. Okay, just for those who don't know project management, because we promised you that this free training will be suitable for all levels. Okay, and by the way, even some people who have been project managers for some time, they don't know exactly what happens in planning phase. Some people think that planning phase is about planning the Gantt chart, preparing the schedule. It's not only that. There are over 20 things, over 20 processes in planning. Okay, all right. Then the executing focus area, or I can call it the execution phase if I want. You will acquire your team, you will coordinate the resources, you make sure that you follow up with your stakeholder engagement, if it's going exactly according to the plan or not. You will make sure that your team carries out with the tasks, you check on those tasks, you drive the execution to achieve the expected value. You manage the changes to enhance value. I love this sentence. I really love it. Execute changes to enhance value. Now, let me explain to you the difference between changes that enhance value and the reactive changes. Reactive changes, those are changes that happen or take place when something went wrong with the schedule, or when we exceeded the budget, or when we're not going to deliver exactly what's in scope. That's a reactive change. But changes that enhance value, those are proactive changes. Those are changes you submit because you want to enhance the value, increase the value, meet the value, or exceed the value. Those are the changes that we want so much on a project. And those changes to happen, whoa, you gotta be a very proactive, accountable owner of value delivery. Oh yeah, that full sentence you hear, you need to watch this recording again and write it down and put on your LinkedIn profile. Go to LinkedIn right now, everyone. Go to LinkedIn and check how many people in the world on their profiles have this written. I am an accountable, proactive leader who creates and delivers value. Not so many, myself included, but I did not want to put it because I'll let you go first, guys. I can simply write it if I want. I have it on my mind since ages. I'll let you have it. At least have it in your bio. Okay? All right. And of course, in the execution or executing focus area, you will apply the chosen project management approach, whether it's adaptive, predictive, or a hybrid. Adaptive, that's agile. Predictive, that's waterfall. Hybrid, that's a mix. Okay? And of course, let me tell you this. The focus area where you spend most of your time as a project manager is the monitoring and controlling. And that's where you show your real strength. Your real strength is not in the planning, is not in the initiating, is not in the executing. It's actually the monitoring, controlling. All of the focus areas are important, but your real strength as a project manager, you show it right here. Okay? Right here. Not only for tracking progress or measuring performance, not only for analyzing variances, identifying any required changes, taking corrective actions or preventive actions. This is where you show that you're on top of your project, you know what's happening, You anticipate early, you adapt, you prevent, or you correct, or you change. Yes, and hopefully proactive changes to maximize value. Okay? Now you keep monitoring and controlling. Okay? Please link it with that first slide number, I think 58 or 62, or I don't remember, where there is that entire holistic view of a project lifecycle. Okay? You link this slide with that one we saw at the beginning of the session. Okay? Um, an effective project manager is the one who really monitors and controls the project very, very, very proactively in order to deliver the or meet the value or exceed it. And then finally, when all your work is done, you can move on to closing your project. Okay, that's when you formally complete the project or the contract. Make sure you verify the completion of actions from all the focus areas. Make sure you verify the achievements of the outputs, outcomes, and benefits, that they meet the expectations or exceed them. All right, here is mentioned. Ensure the project meets or exceeds the intended value and stakeholder expectation. This is one of the toughest ones. It's not easy to ensure it or to prove it. You will either need to calculate it, or you need digital companion to help you know how to calculate it, or to help you calculate it. Okay, it takes some time for the project management experts until they find a way how to get this, delivered, right? You can then, after closing in, either transition the work to operations, um, or the project is closed in case it will not actually create any value. But yeah, we preferably stop here, right here. Okay. Closure must be done in a correct administrative way. That's very important. Of course, what we have seen here in these 5 slides of the focus areas, this is just an introduction. Introduction to what happens mainly in each focus area. But of course, we will go in details in the full training. And let me tell you this, full training is not just about theory. We want you to really apply what you study so you can succeed in your projects. Whatever is written in the box or whatever is presented in a training presentation, those are coming from practical experience. I personally, when I teach PMP, I try to achieve 2 goals at the same time. Okay? One, teach people how to manage projects effectively. Two, teach them how to pass the exam successfully. How to pass. Okay? All right. All right. So, a couple of screenshots from the PMBOK. Okay? Um, Here's an example of focus area interactions within a project or phase, in a waterfall approach. So, for example, follow with me. I know this is kind of tough. Follow with me. Okay? Where this is the, this dashed line, discontinued line is the initiation focus area. So a lot of effort is done here for the initiation work. Then almost nothing here. Then it's back here for comparison when closing. When closing the project, we need to compare with what was agreed in the initiation. Here, the continued line in green, this is the planning. So little effort for planning and initiating, but a lot of effort here, for example, okay? And then less towards the end of the project because we're going to close the project, so no many changes are expected. Execution, the other discontinued line here in purple, yes, that's the biggest effort to execute, and it's usually, in the middle of the project between planning and closing. Monitoring, controlling, it happens throughout the entire project, so it's actually more of a continued effort. Okay, and then this is closing, which is um, like it's a continuity of what happened in the initiation. Then it happens in the closing. And the same reading also when we're talking about an adaptive approach. Okay, because even though in adaptive approach the work is split into cycles, we call them iterations. Okay, and this is just how the focus areas they interact with different uh, yeah with the different uh, approaches. Okay. Never mind. We will go through in details through this in details in the full training. Okay. Each part here represents an iteration where there is the full effort here. All right. And each iteration, of course, is preceded by a planning. Planning for the iteration, then execute, then plan for the iteration, then execute, and so on and so on. In agility part of this training, we focus a lot on especially Scrum. But interesting enough, that it's not only Scrum this time. Even there are few other practices that came into effect compared to the version 7. Few other agile practices now are in effect in the version 8. And it's not about software. No. Yeah, some of the practices come from software industry, but not only software. All right. Now the most important slide, this one. This is your most important slide of the entire training. Of not this training, not this free, the entire training, the entire book. This slide, that's the mapping table. Okay, the process mapping table or the mapping table. Here you have your performance domains, and here you have your focus areas, and which processes happen when. Okay, and you need to remember this by heart. You need to know it by heart. You need to remember it by heart for two reasons. One, so you can perform well in your project. Two, so you can pass the exam. So you can succeed easily in the exam. You need to remember it by heart. This is slide number 114 in PMBOK 8. Okay? So now I will try to explain as much as I can, but usually explaining this takes several sessions. Okay. Now for the governance performance domain. Now what happens in initiating? Usually we initiate the project and the planning. We create the project plans. We align them and integrate them into one coherent plan, the project management plan. And also we plan the sourcing strategy. Where are we going to get our sources from? Resources from, sorry. The work. Are we going to do it in-house? Are we going to outsource? We need to plan our sourcing strategy. Sourcing strategy, yeah. Then for the executing, of course, the work will be executed. Quality will be assured. You see, quality now is part of this governance. And project knowledge will be managed. Whatever our team have accumulated as knowledge, right? Now that happens here for the governance. And while the work is being executed, you as a project manager, you will be monitoring, control the project performance, okay, and check if there are any necessary changes because of a deviation from the plan or because of a way how to enhance value, etc. And then the last thing we do is to close the project phase. Now in PMBOK 6 and 5 and 4 and 3, this used to be called integration management. But now it's called governance. And by the way, we are going to talk about governance a lot in the next session, number 3, because governance, whether organizational governance or project governance, are quite important to ensure project success. We'll explain that next session on Monday, 9th of March, at the same time, 21:30 GMT +1. For the scope performance domain, nothing to be done in initiating. Well, not really. Because when you're initiating the project here in governance, you're actually preparing a project charter. And in the project charter, you will draft the initial scope based on what you understood from the stakeholders whom you have identified here. Here, if you see my cursor. So they will provide you with initial input for the scope. But for the planning focus area, in the planning focus area, you will plan how you're going to manage your scope. Okay. You will analyze the requirements to make sure that you really understood them well, along with the acceptance criteria. You will define the scope, create your scope statement, define your scope, get it approved, and develop your scope structure, whatever structure you're gonna choose and follow. Okay. And then the scope is executed as part of managed the project execution here. That's why it's empty here in the executing area. We don't execute the scope, we execute the work, because the scope, which are requirements, they will be worked on. And when they're worked on, it's part of the project execution. But you will definitely monitor and control the scope with your team and validate it with your customer. Okay? Closing the scope, it happens while closing the project for all of these performance domains. For the schedule, again, the same. In your project charter, in your initiation here in the governance, you will have a basic schedule understanding. But then in the planning, you will plan for your schedule and develop your schedule. Maybe it could be your Gantt chart or any other form. Then in the executing, it's covered by the manage the project execution. But then you have to always monitor and control your schedule in case of deviations or to report on schedule performance. For the finance, you need to have a finance management plan. Okay. You will estimate the costs of the different project work and develop the budget. All right. And you have to monitor and control your finances. All right. For stakeholders, already early in the project, since initiating, you will identify your stakeholders. You will plan the stakeholder engagement. And now this is a tough one. I think one of the toughest things, really. I mean, please remember this, guys. One of the toughest things you need to do as a project manager is to plan for properly for the stakeholder engagement, ensure stakeholders are properly engaged throughout the project every single day. Now, only only a very small percentage of project managers do that on daily basis. Really, only a very, very, very small percentage do that. Okay, to keep the stakeholders engaged on daily basis. And you can notice here, now this is something new, not really new. It used to be like this in PMBOK 4 or 3, that communications now is no more a separate performance domain or knowledge area, but actually now it's part of the stakeholders' performance domain. It used to be like this, I think, in PMBOK 3 or 4. Then they separated them in PMBOK 5, if I'm not mistaken, and 6. Now they're back together in PMBOK 8. Even though communication is not only with the stakeholders, we apply communication also with the team, but it's a different level of communication and different way of communication. That's why it's assigned to the stakeholders more than the team. We will explain that in the full training. Okay. Now you plan your stakeholder engagement and how you're going to communicate with them, the meetings, the frequencies, the reporting, the information level, transparency level, etc. Then in the executing focus area, you will make sure that you manage the stakeholders as or per the plan. And that's the toughest one, to be honest. And you execute the communications, like you run the meetings, you send the meeting minutes, you create and send the reports, you deliver the information, all of that in the communications. Stakeholder engagement and communications are closely tied together. So in the PMP exam, whether the current ECO 21 version or the ECO 26 version, in many questions related to stakeholders, you will see that Sometimes the answer is the engagement plan, sometimes the communication plan. Usually they are not put in two separate options. They're actually together. One of them, if one is present, the other one is not. And you have to monitor the stakeholder engagement and monitor your communications if everything is going right. And by the way, usually the stakeholders are the ones who tell you what kind of communication they want to have, how many meetings, their preferences, etc. Now, for the resources, and here mainly we're talking about the human resources, even though we can also mean non-human resources. You will create a plan how you're going to manage your resources. You have to estimate the resources, human, non-human. That's the planning. And in executing, you will acquire your resources. Now, let me tell you this. I'm not 100%, okay, I don't 100% agree with this. Acquiring resources and executing, it makes sense. Yes, you plan which machines you want, then in the executing, you purchase them. That makes sense for non-human resources. But for people, yes, I know that you don't want to have people during the planning phase sitting on the bench doing nothing, not executing work while getting paid, getting their salaries. I know because that consumes the project budget. I know. However, acquiring team, happening and executing, it should be between brackets written here. It depends. It depends. For example, in an agile project, an adaptive project, resources are already available early in the project. The same in hybrid almost. Only in rare projects, pure waterfall projects, that resources are acquired in executing phase so they can start doing the work. I personally need to tell you this. If you're going to acquire your resources during the executing focus area, make sure that you have enough time for developing the team, setting up the team, getting the team ramped up for the work. So yeah, it's not like you acquire someone today, they start performing tomorrow. It takes time. We have several tools for that and the training, which we will discuss. Not just the Tuckman ladder, but few other tools. All right, and you have to monitor and control the resources. Control not people, but monitor the work and control physical resources, for example, or material resources. For the risk, um, you have to plan how you're going to manage your risks, then identify your risks, then perform risk analysis, whether it's quantitative or qualitative or any other types of analysis, and prepare or plan risk responses. In the executing, you will implement those responses, how you're going to respond to the risks before they become issues. If we were talking about negative risk, a threat, or how you can exploit the risk if it's an opportunity, and keep monitoring your risks. And unfortunately, many projects fail because of this process. The project manager forgets to monitor the risks. Unfortunately, okay? Um, to be able to monitor the risks, look, to be able to monitor the risks, to be able to monitor stakeholder engagement, and to be able to monitor communications, these three processes, it requires a lot of focus. You need to be highly skilled in focusing, stay focused all the time, not lose the focus, not even for a single day, in order to succeed. Because these three processes, monitoring risks, stakeholder engagement, and communications, are the three most important processes that will determine whether your project will succeed or not. Okay? Now, in the next slides, we will have 7 slides, which almost look the same, but they just, each performance domain is taken in a separate slide on its own. Governance, performance domain, process overview. So we saw that already. So this is just a slide that puts it in case, this is taken from the PMBOK in case you want to have separate slides to help you remember for each performance domain what happens. All right, so here you have again the same 9 processes for governance, initiating project, initiating for planning, integrate, align project plans and plan sourcing strategy, For executing, you manage execution, you manage quality, and manage knowledge. For monitoring control, then for monitoring controlling, you monitor control performance, assess, implement changes, and for closing and close. By the way, procurement has been taken out, sorry. It's now in an appendix in version 8, no more performance domain. So we used to have 10 knowledge areas in PMBOK 6. Now we have 7 performance domains for 2 reasons. Communication is merged with stakeholders. Quality is merged here with governance. So those are 2 down. And the third one, which is procurement, now is part of appendix section in PMBOK 8. So these are the core 7, and I appreciate that. Even though there is one process missing. For me, in this entire table, there is a one process missing, which should be here. Third process here in monitoring and controlling. There should be a third process, which is assessing value realization. It's not exactly project performance. It's not exactly that, but there should be third process, which is assessing value realization. For me, it should be process, a mandatory process in every project, really. Even though it's covered a little bit by, we cannot close the project if the value was not delivered. It can be mentioned, but I want it to be explicitly mentioned as a process here. But anyway, maybe for future versions. Here also is an overview of the processes of the scope performance domain. Okay. Here's an overview of the processes of the schedule performance domain. The same for the finance performance domain. The same for the stakeholders performance domain. Okay. And that makes me know that there is a mistake. So I think there's a mistake here. Not here. Here. I knew that. I knew there is a mistake. Actually, yeah. For the process mapping, exactly. Stakeholders is missing here. So I knew there is something missing from the beginning. Yeah, I go back to stakeholders. These are the processes, then the resources, and yeah, these are the process for the resources separately, and finally for the risk. Okay. So here's an overview of the processes of each performance domain.